Hobart, a few showers possible, 10 to 18 tomorrow. 29 the expected top in Adelaide on Friday, off a low of 17 degrees. Perth 15 to 26, mostly sunny, and Darwin 25 to 34 degrees. Radio afternoons. It is 2:45 Eastern Daylight Time, 2:15 in South Australia, 2:45 in Queensland, 1:15 in the Territory, and 1:45 to midday in the West.
ABC News Radio headlines.
Now we're on our way back
The former fugitive Gino and Mark Stocker
from Sale to Loch
in Central West New South Wales after a Dubbo court formally denied them bail over a number of charges, including murder. The Royal Australian Navy will proceed with a planned training exercise with Chinese sailors next week, despite rising military and diplomatic tensions in the South China Sea. And the Rosetta spacecraft has stunned scientists by indicating the current theories of how the planets, comets and asteroids are formed are wrong. Let's get some more details now on some of what's making news here and abroad. There's more controversy in the murky world of football politics. Comments made by suspended FIFA boss Sepp Blatter to a Russian state news agency. Sepp Blatter has revealed that Russia was always going to get the 2018 World Cup because an agreement had been made before a single vote had been delivered. America was then going to get the 2022 World Cup, but he's blamed European football executive Michel Platini for pushing Qatar's case instead. And Europe correspondent Stella reports.
There are layers of investigations, multiple accusations of corruption, and the man who led FIFA is speaking out despite being suspended. He tells reporters at the Russian news agency TASS that there was
an old person in front of us.
Russia, then the US in 2022.
See if he actually does 100 k's along here, and obviously not. Now these are the people who actually do cause accidents.
It up between two world powers didn't go to plan, and Blatter says the head of
You can see it's all over the road.
Associations, UEFA, Michel Platini, pushed the cutter and ruined America's chances.
They're only doing 70 k's at the moment in a 100 k zone on a clear day. And now he's like drifting all over the road. I'm not going to try and take past him here. Too risky.
The head of the English Football Association, Greg Dyke, was appearing before a parliamentary committee at Westminster.
Oh, wait a minute, patient. Look at this. Can't drive. I don't know why some people are still allowed to have their licenses.
There's nothing that Mr. Blatter said that we wouldn't surprise me. But I honestly don't know what it means. If it means we want to, it's obviously able to
We can't even put in the fifth gear yet.
Russia and everyone Qatar. And it looks like it was fixed. He wanted that before the
I hope to God I'm not stuck behind this person all the way to Loch's Court.
First of all, I'd like to see it again.
Potentially going to have an accident himself.
It doesn't look suggestive that it was all fixed anyway.
England spent tens of millions of dollars on its bids to host the World Cup. Now Greg Dyke is suggesting there should be even more investigations.
I don't know why.
It's a corrupt to do that, and has
meeting this week to hammer out the strategy for the country's economic blueprint for the coming 5 years. One of the measures up for debate is the end of China's one-child policy. The town of Rudong in Jiangsu province was held up as a model for the success of the policy in curbing China's booming population. But as BBC World's John Sudworth reports, the town is now creaking under the weight of an ageing population, relying on just a few wage earners.
No, what? That's 80 k's. That's like, what the fuck?
From great-great-grandmother
40 k's on the side
down
of the road,
through
maybe.
5 generations, this family is a perfect example of China's population crisis.
They're
There's only
side
one
a little bit off.
great-great-grandchild. It's a story of pain and loss that could be told at hundreds of millions of dinner tables.
Can't have 40 than 80 without covering the
I did fall
80 up.
pregnant for a second time, Jiang Xinping tells me, but I had an abortion. Did you have a choice? I couldn't keep it, she replies. You either go willingly or the government comes.
Oh, wow.
Rudong in eastern China was once given model status for its strict enforcement of the one-child policy. Now, though, in terms of age profile, it is the oldest place in the country. Gao Dechuan is one of many growing old alone. His only son lives far away. He would have 2 more children, were it not for the abortions his wife was forced to undergo. My biggest concern is what will happen to me when I can't look after myself, he tells me. With its early adoption and strict enforcement, the county of Rudong has been emptied of its children quicker than anywhere else in time. And as it grows old, it now stands as a stark warning about the disastrous economic consequences of the one-child policy. There have been changes in the number of exceptions to the rules of increase, but so far China's national leaders have stubbornly stuck to it. That, though, might be about to change. China's population obsession can be traced back to Chairman Mao, becoming national policy after his death. As his modern-day successors work on the latest 5-year plan, there's wide speculation that the one-child policy will finally go.
More families children
But critics say even a 2-child policy won't boost the birth rate enough. And for women who want more than 2, of course, it won't end in brutal control of their fertility.
BBC World's John Sudworth reporting from Rudong town in Jiangsu province. Astrophysicists say the discovery means the solar system was warmer and calmer than previously thought. They might now have a theory on how it was formed. Lucy Carter reports.
Since August last year, the European Space Agency's probe Rosetta has been following and examining comet 67P. Last year, it placed the lander module Philae onto the comet itself, but following close behind the comet, Rosetta still had more work to do. Its latest project has been to examine the gas cloud surrounding the comet. Swinburne University astronomer and research fellow Dr. Alan Duffy explains.
The Rosetta spacecraft flew at different heights behind the comet as the water and oxygen was boiling off from the surface. As it approached
The research has been published today in the journal Nature. Lucy Carter with that report.
Politics affects all our lives, and the political rap is Marius Benson's analysis of the week in Australian politics.
Both Joe Hockey and Tony Abbott, in their public statements so far, have delivered nothing more than delusional self-justification.
It's the political spin unspun.
The winners are grinners and the rest can suit themselves. Joe Hockey is off to Washington. Ambassador there has now been firmly established as the consolation prize for high-flying losers in Australian politics. It's a sort of bronze medal in the Australian political race.
The political rap with Marius Benson. Download it now at abc.net.au/newsradio or from the iTunes store.
Good afternoon, Tracy Holmes with you on ABC News Radio. Thank you to Scott Wales for the past 3 hours. Eastern Daylight Time is 3 o'clock, in South Australia 2:30, in Queensland it's 2 o'clock, the Northern Territory 1:30, and in Western Australia it's 12 noon.
ABC News Radio.
The Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, insists Australian officials involved in intercepting asylum seekers at sea have always acted within the law. The human rights group says Australian officials paid people smugglers $32,000 to return a boat carrying 65 asylum seekers back to Indonesia in May. It claims officers put the lives of asylum seekers at risk and breached transnational laws. The government has never denied that the payments were made, but Ms Bishop says officials have acted illegally. Australian officials are acting in accordance with Australian domestic law and in accordance with Australia's international obligations. The man accused of murdering young mother Carly Pearce-Stevenson remains behind bars to face court again next month. David Marchese reports.
The remains of Carly Pearce-Stevenson were identified last week, another link in a case that's baffled police for years. The man accused of her murder was arrested in the Hunter Valley town of Cessnock yesterday and faced court this morning. Daniel James Holder had requested not to appear at all, but the magistrate refused that request, saying it's not like he's being paraded through the court. The 41-year-old accused was told the case would be moved to Sydney Central Local Court next month, to which he responded, "Yes, Your Honour." He did not apply for bail and it was formally refused. Police say they're still investigating the death of Carly's daughter Candice, whose remains were found in a suitcase in South Australia earlier this year. David Marchese, ABC
What a
News.
bloody waste.
Father
Two
and son
beautiful
Gino
people
and
like
Mark
that.
Stocko have been remanded in custody, charged over the murder of a farm caretaker in central western New South Wales. Joanna Woodburn reports that there was formally refused bail during a brief court hearing.
The father and son are facing 34 charges relating to the discovery of a 68-year-old man whose body was found on a property near
using fantasy economics. The only woman hopeful, Carly Fiorina, describes herself as an outsider who gets things done. BBC Stephen Bright has been listening to the debate.
What we're seeing really is a big split in the Republican Party between this right-wing radical insurgency that is represented by people like Ben Carson, like Ted Cruz, like Donald Trump, and the establishment wing, which is represented by people like Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio. The big problem for the GOP high command is that that radical right wing at the moment is dominant.
The son of WA Police Commissioner Carl O'Callaghan has pleaded guilty to charges of assaulting and threatening to kill a woman. Russell Joseph O'Callaghan had been due to stand trial before the jury next week, but today appeared in the District Court in Perth and pleaded guilty to 3 charges. 2 other charges of unlawful detention and making a threat to prevent the woman calling police were withdrawn. The offence dates back to August last year. O'Callaghan appeared via video link from Casuarina Prison. No details of the offences will be read to the court until a sentencing hearing in January. To the top end, rangers and fire crews are working to contain a major bushfire burning out of control in the southern part of Kakadu National Park. Christy O'Brien reports.
Parks Australia says the fire is bigger than the one that was started a few weeks ago by ERA in the park, which is estimated to have burned out 200 square kilometres. The blaze is burning out of control towards an Indigenous protected area in Arnhem Land and towards Nimilak National Park. Crews say the country is very inaccessible and hard to get to. Crews are using a range of tactics on the ground and in the air, but windy weather, extreme heat and limited water are making their task difficult. Jim Falls, Twin Falls and Gunlong have all been closed to the public.
To business and finance news, Woolworths shares have tumbled after the supermarket chain warned profits for the first half of this financial year would slump by around a third. Woolworths says it's expecting net profit after tax in the first half to come in between $900 million and $1 billion, down as much as 35% on the same time the year before. It says that's because of a big overhaul of its business, including cutting prices, boosting service and launching a new rewards program. Now the All Ordinaries at the moment down by 58 points to 5,316. The ASX 200 has lost 63 points at 5,272. West Texas crude at 45.88 US a barrel, Tapis is at 49.68 and gold trading at $1,160 US an ounce. The Australian dollar meanwhile at 71.05 US cents. Let's head to the sports desk now with Dennis Verlaine.
Thanks, Tracy. In horse racing, the Melbourne Cup lost one of its best credentialed gallopers today when Caulfield Cup winner Mongolian Khan was ruled out on veterinary advice. The 4-year-old who also won the Australian Derby in the autumn was found to be suffering from colic earlier today. Another 2 horses with places in the 24-horse field have also been examined by vets today. The overseas gallopers Sky Hunter and Quest for More will both be assessed again before final declarations on Saturday. In rugby union, former World Cup winner Simon Poitevin says he can see similarities between the current Wallabies outfit, the team he played with in 1991 that won the final at Twickenham. Poitevin, who played in the forwards for Australia in a 12-6 victory over England in the final 24 years ago, says squad unity and training intensity were keys then and now.
The whole squad being good. The 1991 3 players in the Western playing games for those really vital part of the game. The training sessions is as important as the games. The training sessions is tactile skill, and they're full on, but it's fists, there's plenty going on. But that's the entire team's up with that.
The AFL denies the 2016 season will lose momentum by having a bye the week before the finals. The Code's governing body has responded to Fremantle and North Melbourne's decision to rest players in the final round this season by introducing a bye week after round 23 for next year. AFL Chief Executive Gillon McLaughlin says they have plenty of options to keep fans interested over that bye week.
We'll then obviously look to the All Australian, Southern Rising Star, and we'll be the Legends Game, both on community state league finals, Australian events. Maybe we'll meet and start the final series tournament, which start on a Thursday night.
Meantime, North Melbourne have delisted Majak Dawn and Kieran Harper. The Kangaroos say they hope to draft door as a rookie next month. Harper played 40 games for North after being taken with pick 27 in the 2010 draft. In soccer, defender Shane Stefanuto will make his comeback from a calf injury when the Brisbane Roar host Adelaide United in Saturday's A-League game at Lang Park. First choice goalkeeper Michael Theo will miss the match with an ongoing leg problem. Jamie Young will once again start in his place. Brisbane recorded their first loss of the season last week against Wellington. Meantime, Melbourne Victory have been given the home ground advantage for the final of the FFA Cup. Victory earned the right to take on Perth Glory in the final with a 3-0 win last night over Hume City. And in Chile, Australia are out of the Under-17 World Cup after getting a 6-0 thumping from Nigeria this morning. In tennis, Bernard Tomic has lost his second-round match at the Valencia Open. The Aussie third seed took the opening set against Uruguay's Pablo Cuevas before going down 3-6, 6-3, 6-4. Meantime, in Basel, the third seed there, Rafael Nadal, battled back from a breakdown in the final set to defeat Grigor Dimitrov 6-4, 4-6, 6-3 and reach the quarterfinals of the Swiss Open. In cricket, Mitchell Starc is shredding the South Australian batting in the Sheffield Shield match that's been played at the Adelaide Oval. Day 2's only been going for about 40 odd minutes and he's already taken another 2 wickets. Looking at the South Australian batting now, they're 5 for 27. 4 of their batsmen have ducks and Mitchell Starc has 4 wickets for 10 runs. He's into his 8th over at the moment. So South Australia in big trouble. They're replying to New South Wales a total of 9 for 262. But if you're a South Australia supporter and you want to see Australia do well in the test, that's pretty encouraging from Mitchell Starc. He's taken another 2 wickets today. He had 2 late in the game yesterday. Quickly, what's happening around the other grounds? Cricket Australia 11 are still thrashing the bowling of the New Zealand touring team at the moment. Both the openers for the Cricket Australia 11 have centuries. Ryan Carter's is 103 not out. Aaron Finch is 105 not out. The Cricket Australia 11 none for 212. In the match that's at Bellerive Oval, the Sheffield Shield match, Western Australia 6 for 300 in their first innings, and in the match Queensland are playing against Victoria at the MCG. Queensland are 6 for 332 in their first innings as well.
It's all happening there, Debbie.
Yes, 4 matches to keep an eye on, so that'll keep things lively throughout the afternoon, especially if Mitch Starc keeps doing that.
Yeah, it'll keep you alive, that's for sure. Let's head to the Australian Traffic Network. Here's James Engelman.
Tracy, thank you. In Brisbane, first accidents on Blunder Road at Durack, Lutwich Road, Windsor, and also Fryer Road, Eagleby. In Sydney, we've got a truck by Bar Point on the Pacific Highway, the M1 there closed northbound. There's contraflows and big delays, so avoid that if you can. In Melbourne, accidents, or roadworks actually, on Brunswick Road, Brunswick, Ascot Vale Road, Mooney Ponds, and Dudley Road, West Melbourne. Thankfully, no accidents there at the moment. No accidents in Adelaide either, but we've got Lighthouse, South Road, Acton Street, Clarence Garden. The roadworks slowing Maples Road outside Parafield Airport. But at the moment, accident and breakdown free. I'm James Engelman, more ABC News Radio traffic in half an hour.
Thanks very much for that, James. President of the United States had held their third televised debate, this time hosted by CNBC in Boulder, Colorado. Political fortunes have shifted since the last debate, with neurosurgeon Ben Carson pulling ahead of the frontrunner Donald Trump in the polls for the first time. The pundits have been watching and dissecting the debate. Among them is former New York Republican Congressman and Fox News commentator John LeBoutier, who says Donald Trump was somewhat toned down tonight.
I think he was a little toned down, and because of it, I actually think he did better in this debate. I think there was less of the nasty, angry, personal invective, and a little bit more directed points on policy. That's the way I read it when it happened. I actually think he helped himself tonight.
There were a fair few questions about how to handle the economy. They tended to dominate the debate. Who do you think was the strongest in this area?
It's a good question. Several of them were good. I thought Rubio was good. I thought Kasich was very good, the governor of Ohio. I even think Bill Rand Paul actually was going nowhere in the race. I think he did pretty well. And I guess you got to say Carson did well. I find that Carson speaks very little in these debates, but when the people are asked about him after the debate, he always does very well in the polling. So he's connecting somehow with a lot of people.
Now, what about Jeb Bush? The only votes he seems to be getting are the sympathy votes at the moment. Are we seeing the end of the Bush dynasty?
Yes, I think it's coming to an end. Not tonight, not tomorrow, but pretty soon. I think it's a matter of weeks. He's desperate. He had an agenda tonight, which is an odd agenda. His agenda was to trash Rubio, who was on his left on the podium, on the stage. His one-time mentor took apart this young guy, Rubio, as best he could. And I don't really see how that helps Jeb Bush. I frankly don't see how attacking each other helps any of them. I think it hurts them.
And why is that? Is it the Bush years legacy? Is it just that the nation is looking for new ideas, new blood, new names, a new direction for the US?
We're definitely looking for all that. We're looking for new stuff, new ideas. But the memory of the second President Bush is a negative memory. Not the first president. No one has any bad feelings about him. But George W. Bush is a very divisive figure in the country. Left us with Iraq and Afghanistan unfinished, Katrina, and just a bad feeling. And he had a very low rating when he left office. And that is Jeb Bush's house choice around his neck is his brother.
And so then how would you describe the relationship that America has with the Clintons? Because a lot of people say, you know, looking back, they might have liked the male version of Clinton, not so much the female version of Clinton. Those roles then reversed. Now some people say they're helping each other. Other people are saying they shouldn't be seen in the same room together. How do you see that dynamic?
Well, I think that her best asset is him. And whenever Hillary's in trouble, she trots out Bill Clinton to help out. And he likes to help her out. But, you know, the Clintons weren't the most popular thing of all time. In two presidential elections, Bill Clinton never got 50% of the vote. He got 42 the first time in 1992, and then in his re-election, which he obviously won, he still only got 49% of the vote. So, you know, his popularity was high during his term, but it's not through the roof. And Hillary is not that popular, and she's not a good candidate. And that's why she has to keep reverting to have him to come in and clean up the mess.
It's interesting though, isn't it, the benefit of time. Some people's legend grows in a positive way, others grow in a negative way, and not necessarily realistic or tied to the truth or honesty of the time. They seem to take on a life of their own in their post years.
Well, I agree with that. And I think the time is going on. People look back on Bill Clinton's presidency very positively. I think they thought positively of it while he was president because the economy was good. It got better. Congress, there wasn't that gridlock mess that we're so sick of now. He and the Republican Congress actually worked together, did well are more balanced the budget, actually produce a federal annual surplus, which was dissipated when George W. Bush took over. So there's a lot about Bill Clinton, the president, not the man, that people have a good feeling about. Bill Clinton, the man, had a problem about weapons defense, and that was the downside of his legacy, and it has hurt Hillary some.
All right, so let's get back to the Republicans and the debate this evening, because obviously the successful candidate is going to have to appeal to a party that remains divided. Where do you see that shift turning?
It's really such a divide in the Republican Party that I don't really know that this party could be put back together again. The conservatives / outsiders are so angry at the establishment / insiders that I just don't know that they can coexist anymore. I mean, listen, the Republicans have been running the Senate and the House since January 3rd. They basically get nothing done. They have not come up with a Republican health care plan, a Republican immigration plan. They have none of those. They cannot even bridge that gap in the caucus room in the House and in the Senate. They sit in there and they cannot even agree on what to do or what issue to talk about. That's how bad it is.
So is that division inside the Republican Party just making the Democrats look more settled and more like a stable choice to make?
Yes, and the polling shows it's true that when asked their opinion of each party,
in that time zone, you got till 4 o'clock before it's not 40 Ks.
I think it's only 29% of the American people with favorable opinion.
That person should have been booked.
Democrats are like 10 or 15 points higher, and then above both of them are independents. The hot new thing in America is when you register to vote, you can register either as a Republican or a Democrat or what they call a flag or an independent.
Oh, it's got to check the
You're not a member of any.
air box on the way home. That's about it. I hope you all like this video. So please subscribe.
That's the former New York Republican Congressman and Fox News commentator John Loch.
And yeah, please comment on the videos because I really appreciate that.
The federal government has labelled a report into alleged payments to people smugglers as a slur on the good people of Australia's border force and
It's 21 at the moment, but when I was in sales, it said it was 20 degrees outside. That's what the sensor said, but it was like 30 inside the car at least.
By Assembly government ministers when describing Australia's involvement. Matthew Dora reports.
The Prime Minister may have been unveiling plans for a new ice cream ship in Tasmania. But it was the happening on another vote dominating the government's agenda.
It seems as though the Australian government has abused the trust that the public has put into them.
In May this year, Australian officials intercepted a people smuggling boat, and some reports have suggested they paid the crew more than $30,000 to turn the boat around.
It raises really serious concerns that in the course of Operation Sovereign Borders, Australian officials might be breaking the law.
They don't like Operation Sovereign Borders. They try and attack the Border Force staff, naval staff, disgrace, and the call for a royal commission into the alleged payment, as well as an investigation into a second incident where payments were also alleged to have been made.
Let's sit down and work on that voice version of that.
And we're not going to
I'll go past the pub.
some watering down of that. As the story developed earlier this year, government rhetoric did too. First, the Foreign Minister was asked.
Do Australian authorities pay the captain and crew of people smuggling boats to turn back to Indonesia? No.
Then the Immigration Minister. But just days later, we don't comment in relation to Operation matters. It wasn't long before even the opposition shied away after questions were raised about payments under their governments. We don't talk about that. No serious leader does. Whilst the government expressly denied the involvement of Australian border force and defence officials in any payments to people smugglers, that denial has never been extended to intelligence officials, leaving unanswered questions about Australia's conduct on the high seas.
Matthew Dora reporting there. Former fugitives Mark and Gino Stocco have appeared in court in New South Wales charged with multiple offences.
Should put them in separate jails, make maximum security in separate jails.
Yesterday on a remote property near Dubbo, about 400 kilometres northwest.
So that way there they can't plan together to escape or anything like that.
They're facing a string of charges.
Hey, he's on the road.
For both Gino and Mark Stockwell, the most serious of which is murder. Others relate to firearms offences, resisting arrest, and also shoot with intent to murder. So 34 in total.
Wow.
And they made a brief appearance here in the double local court. Well, their matter did at least. In the double local court this morning, they chose not to appear in person or via audio-visual link. How much do we know about the police operation to capture the